Awesome.
Good evening, everybody. Happy New Year. Hopefully, everybody had a safe and prosperous holiday. Today, we have a couple of things on the agenda to discuss, but we'll roll right into it. Again, greetings to everybody. I don't know if I saw somebody come in. Just making sure that hopefully everyone had a healthy holiday, and I'll just lead into the chairperson's report. Not a lot of business actually to discuss. On December 26th, we received the hearing notice for the BSA application for 3002 Farragut Road. The hearing is scheduled for January 8th or 9th. Really just to get like a calendar date, and depending on how the prior applications go, will determine what date they are actually going to be heard. That stream is going to be on the Board of Standing and Appeals YouTube page for public viewing. So if anyone's interested, I think I just shared that inside of our group chat, but I'll have Ms. Frazier actually share the notice with the committee members if you're interested on one of those two dates, so we could attend and see what the actual outcome of that application is. Secondly, I think some legislation was passed by our governor on November 14th. I have it in my notes. It safeguards deed theft, more or less. It expands the powers of the attorney general and the local lawyers, giving them the opportunity to pause any proceedings that have associated business with a potential deed theft case. So if there anybody that's being evicted by a potential, fraudster, they have the ability now to pause those proceedings until the actual deed theft hearing is actually seen through. So it's the first that I've seen in my tenure of something actually enhancing any of that. While its effectiveness remains to be seen, any improvement to the current state of affairs is good. We also received a response from the Community Board 14, the letter that we drafted regarding the residential development on Bedford Avenue that was previously occupied by the Sears Corporation. The response is as follows. He's saying that it falls under the as of right statute again. So CB 14 hasn't had any opportunity to review any plans. However, they've been receptive to site related complaints. They, as in the developer. And they also did what we typically do in these situations is they followed up with DOB and revoked their after hours variances, which was the cause of most of their disturbances. And Clipper Equities has been attentive to certain complaints that they've been receiving, and they said they'll be willing to, give us any information we need regarding that. But outside of those three items, it was pretty quiet for the holidays. Does anybody have any questions regarding those items? Anyone? Great, excellent. Moving the agenda along. New year, new energy. I like it. Moving the agenda along. The meeting minutes. I don't think we have quorum at this moment. We'll have to wait until later on in the meeting to actually establish that. And
No minutes.
I guess
we are still playing catch up. We should complete all minutes by the end of this month or the mid-February. The process has already started.
All right, excellent. So I guess moving forward, Ms. Gusenfeld, are you in the room?
Good evening. This is Ina Gusenfeld from the Brooklyn office of the Department of City Planning. I am in fact here, and thank you for inviting us to attend and present at this Land Use Committee meeting. I'm joined by my colleague and director of the Economic Development and Research Unit at DCP, who is the agency expert on this proposed zoning text amendment. So I can do our full presentation. I'm also happy to focus on specific proposals or specific concerns.
Yes, thank you. The floor is yours. I mean, you and your team can get started and, this is the forum for that discussion. So, I'm sure my committee members are eagerly awaiting. So whenever you're ready, you can get started, share your screen and start that presentation.
Okay, great. So let me do that and then we'll get started momentarily. Okay, so just as a reminder, we presented to the full board on December 20th. We were time limited and we had a pretty dense presentation. And so certainly a lot of questions came up from the board and the community, some that we didn't get to address. And so this is an opportunity to both review and dig deeper into the proposals that are part of this zoning text amendment. So I am going to share my screen and I apologize, I'm a little bit sick. So please let me know if I'm not speaking clearly. Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
We can now.
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. I'm glad this is working. Okay, so this is City of Yes for Economic Opportunity, and I do have the date December 20th. That's because this presentation has not changed since, and it's basically the same presentation that we've given to all of the community boards. In this case, tailored to the geography of Richmond CD17. So as a quick reminder, this is the second of 3 initiatives with zoning for carbon neutrality presented last year and zoning for housing opportunity coming in the spring of this year.
It's Carolyn. Okay, I just wanted to note that that your slides weren't changing, but they seem to be now. Thank you.
Yes, I'm my own ventriloquist. I'm moving the slides along as I speak. Okay, so this is a slide of all 18 proposals that were informed by outreach done with stakeholders across the city, including small business owners, chambers of commerce, bids, industrial service providers, and others to better understand ways that our zoning might be getting in the way of people establishing or expanding businesses, especially in the current climate. So to date, we've met with over 100 groups. We had 5 public information sessions, and we've heard from many New Yorkers about the challenges that we face. And this proposal was shaped by those concerns. So I'm going to move through each of these proposals, starting with goal. So in the first place, we just want to make it easier for businesses to find space and grow by lifting zoning barriers so that businesses can locate closer to their customers where they want. And the first proposal under this goal is to reactivate vacant storefronts. Storefront vacancy is a problem across all community boards and 5 boroughs. And one way to address that is to lift this kind of arbitrary 2-year time clock that we have under zoning for storefronts that are deemed non-conforming in their locations. So basically for certain storefronts, if they are vacant for more than 2 years, they basically cannot reopen as stores. And that contributes to vacancy across the city. So we're proposing to remove that time clock so vacant storefronts can be reoccupied more easily in the future. In many parts of the city, we have similar zoning districts, like the C1 and C2 commercial overlays shown here. And often they're located along the same corridor or on opposite sides of the street. But because they have different regulations, they allow different kinds of businesses. So what we're proposing here is to simplify the differences between those C1 and C2 districts to make it easier for businesses to know where they can locate. So looking at this map, you can see the C1 and C2 districts in CD17, and where uses that are allowed in one district would also be allowed in the other. Now, this proposal will do the same thing for the higher density C4, C5, and C6 districts. In CD17, there's only a small pocket of light blue C4. But basically, the idea is to allow the same businesses to open and locate across those higher density commercial districts. Another thing we want to do is enable small scale clean production, like pottery studios, bakeries, coffee roasters, jewelry makers, 3D printing, and similar uses that have grown across the city to locate in commercial districts for the first time. So that would be allowed at up to 5,000 square feet in C1 and C2 districts, provided that those businesses comply with environmental standards for locating near residences. And then in the higher density C4, C5, and C6 districts, those uses would be allowed at up to 10,000 square feet with the same environmental locations. So again, that would only apply to that small light blue area of C4 in Community District 17. Another issue businesses face is that if they want to locate an existing building, zoning sometimes requires unnecessary loading docks, even if those businesses don't need them or the building can't physically accommodate them. We want to allow for older commercial buildings to change over time by not mandating that businesses tear apart the ground floor or to provide new loading docks, which is very expensive and often infeasible. And this would apply to buildings throughout CD17 that have loading docks. This proposal, which received some questions at our presentation on December 20th, would allow upper floor commercial uses. So zoning sometimes restricts businesses to lower floors. And we want to enable renovations or construction of mixed use buildings where it makes sense by allowing commercial uses at the same level or above residences, provided that complete separation between uses is maintained. So this proposal would potentially allow commercial uses on the second floor of a residential building in all commercial districts. And you can see on the map here where second floor commercial uses would be allowed. But again, they would have to be able to provide a complete separation between themselves and residential uses above and below. Now you can see where this proposal would apply in C4, C5, and C6 districts, which again are very limited in CD17. So this again is only if the building can provide physical separation required between residential and non-residential portions of the building. And for uses that are deemed noisy, buildings must have a minimum of 15 feet of separation or materials to attenuate any excessive sound in the C4, C5, and C6 districts. As many people have heard by now, our zoning resolution dates back to 1961, and the terms that it uses to classify businesses have not been updated in more than 60 years. So it's full of outdated use types like typewriter repair, which makes it hard for businesses like cell phone stores, which are much more predominant today, to know where they can look. So as part of City of Yes, the City of Yes zoning text amendment, we're proposing to actually simplify and modernize the terms we use in zoning to classify businesses. And that would apply to uses across the district and in general across the boroughs and across the city. Now moving on to our second goal. We want to support growing industries. I mentioned small scale clean production, and there are others, including urban agriculture. So growing food and other agriculture across the city. And under this proposal, under this goal, we would clarify that indoor agriculture is allowed in commercial districts so that more urban agriculture can take place and more food can be grown closer to communities, especially those that another growing industry is life sciences. So under this proposal, we would make it clear that laboratories without potential for environmental hazards are appropriate in office settings. And we'd also expand where an existing special permit can be used, so labs might be able to locate in the future closer to research centers like hospitals and universities. Now, regarding nightlife, restaurants and bars face confusing regulations on whether they can host concerts, dancing, comedy shows, or open mic nights under the zoning resolution. In this case, we're proposing to simplify the rules so they're based on the size of the venue rather than the activity that's taking place. And that way you'd see only small venues in neighborhood commercial corridors and larger venues in places like Midtown where they're more appropriate. Furthermore, in the higher commercial and manufacturing districts, we are proposing no changes because dancing is already allowed in bars and restaurants in those areas, along with additional lobby requirements for queuing. So it can't be located within 100 feet of a residential district. Okay, amusements. We would like to simplify and modernize how zoning treats amusements and various types of recreational activities, ranging from indoor play cafes to, like a Dave and Buster's, for example, to make clear that these businesses are allowed indoors and at a small scale on a neighborhood street. And in C1 and C2 districts, that would be a maximum of 10,000 square feet, and at larger scales in higher density commercial districts, and also the M districts where applicable. Okay. This proposal about home occupations also raised several questions at the full board. So here we would propose to enable entrepreneurship with modern rules for a variety of home-based businesses while maintaining rules to ensure that any home-based business is a good neighbor. So this proposal would expand the current size or proportion of the home that can be used for business, and the employee allowance from 1 to 3 employees. But we would maintain noise and environmental rules, signage limits, and restrictions on selling items not made on site that already exist and are enforced by the Department of Buildings. Generally, we seek to foster vibrant neighborhoods by ensuring businesses contribute to active, safe, and walkable streets. So as part of this zoning text amendment, we're proposing to create a consistent and easy to understand baseline set of rules for commercial ground floor design that is more responsive in areas with greater pedestrian activity and more relaxed in the city's more auto-oriented corridors. So here in this table, you see tier A, that's more auto-oriented corridors, tier B, that's more pedestrian-oriented corridors, and tier C, those for corridors located in special districts. Now, speaking of automotive corridors, we are proposing to rationalize and consolidate the range of auto servicing uses in zoning into 2 categories, light and heavy vehicle repair and maintenance. And I know this also raised a number of questions and concerns of the board that we'll be happy to address after the presentation. Heavy vehicle maintenance must be licensed by the state DMV and would continue to be allowed only in industrial areas, while light vehicle repair could potentially locate outside of industrial areas with approval from the Board of Standards and Appeals. So this map shows where light auto servicing would be allowed only after BSA approval. For heavy auto servicing, which is defined by the DMV as repairing or diagnosing motor vehicle malfunctions or repairing motor vehicle bodies, fenders, or other components damaged by accident otherwise, that would be allowed in CB17's C8 and M districts, which remains the case. And again, to clarify, the proposal is not to allow light auto maintenance to locate, light vehicle repair to locate wherever. It is actually restricting where light vehicle repair can locate by making it subject to that BSA special permit. Okay. Regarding micro distribution. So we're proposing to create a new type of use in zoning called a micro distribution facility and allow these businesses to locate on a small scale in commercial areas. And the goal here, I'm sure you've seen, many streets across the city are clogged with delivery trucks making last mile trips. And so we want to encourage deliveries to shift to alternative modes of transportation and regulate the creation of local hubs for safe and sustainable deliveries. These distribution facilities would be capped at 2,500 square feet. That's a storefront, maximum storefront size in C1 and C2 districts. In the higher density C districts, they would be limited to 5,000 square feet on the ground floor, with larger spaces available only through a BSA special permit. And importantly, streetscape rules would prohibit papering over windows. You may have heard about so-called dark stores, which are really distribution facilities located in C districts that put up black paper over their windows so that people won't be encouraged to try to shop there. Okay. Our fourth and final goal is to create new opportunities for businesses to open by establishing new zoning tools that can boost job growth and business expansion. Proposal 15 in this goal is to create a special City Planning Commission authorization to allow up to 15,000 square feet of commercial space in existing or new construction on a large-scale residential campus, giving residents greater access to basic necessities for this space to grow a new business. And so this, in terms of existing campuses, this refers to NYCHA, where you have a number of buildings on kind of a tower in the park type campus, and often people have to walk very far to get basic necessities. But there are also many campus-like affordable housing developments that are being built in the next few years that would also benefit from this proposal. Some portions of New York City are not within walking distance of a local retail store, like a bodega, and zoning has no pathways to potentially allow new local businesses to open. So here we're proposing to create a discretionary pathway where a business could initiate a process to locate a new corner store, provided that the store does not generate any environmental or traffic concerns. This would be up to 2,500 square feet within 100 feet of an intersection, but only after review by the community board and a vote by the City Planning Commission. Overall, we're expanding the zoning toolkit so businesses can initiate a process to waive some burdensome zoning rules on a case-by-case basis and standardize a process for doing so using a City Planning Commission authorization, which would be voted on by the City Planning Commission. Now, this proposal would also create a range of new job-intensive zoning uses at various densities and heights that expand the zoning toolkit for future rezonings for growth and preservation of industrial areas. And Carolyn, my colleague, can explain these different new loft style zoning districts in greater detail. Looking closely at existing conditions in Brooklyn CD 17 and why this proposal is important for this community district. We created economic snapshots of each community board using figures from the New York State Department of Labor. For CD 17, there are more than 23,000 jobs, which are concentrated in the institutional or education and healthcare sectors. That includes public schools, hospitals, doctors' offices, and services offered by in-home care providers. Private sector employment is at 108% of the level that it had been before the pandemic, which is above the Brooklyn average economic recovery and outpaces the city's recovery overall, which is great. But zooming in just at the ground level, there are nearly 2,800 storefronts in the district that are located on neighborhood streets and along commercial corridors, as you can see on the map to the right, and about 10% of these are vacant. That's a rate that's a bit below the Brooklyn average storefront vacancy and the city's overall. And we think that this could potentially be addressed through some of the proposals that I described in this presentation. So this is the timeline for the process to come. And I'm also sharing as part of this presentation some resources for the board, which may have already been viewed or utilized because we provided a copy of this presentation in late December. So we are now in the process of going before every community board in a formal public review. And CB 17 will have until the City Planning Commission's vote in early February to submit recommendations and hold a vote. And we are encouraging the board to submit its recommendation and the outcome of its vote by the end of January. So this process will culminate in a city council vote, which is the final vote sometime in the spring. And here are some resources with links for additional information, including the annotated zoning text, the economic snapshots I presented earlier, and some use group, an explanation of how use groups would change. And this is an optional worksheet, finally, that we developed for community boards to use, where they can indicate which of the 18 proposals they support with modifications, don't support, and otherwise when submitting the board vote. Thank you for your generous time, and we welcome any questions you might have.
Time for questions. Sorry, when I came in, I seen multiple hands all at the same time. So I'm going to start with Ms. Viglianti. You have the floor.
Oh, great. Hi, good evening. I have so many questions, but I'm going to limit it to two. On point 13 about the repair shops, the auto repair shops, how does that affect all the repair shops that are currently in operation? Are they going to have to move, or how does that affect them? Or does it is just for new businesses that are opening? And then my second question is about the corner stores in the residential neighborhoods. And I'd like to know if that means that if there's a residence, a home on a corner, that can just be turned into a business, a bodega, or like, you know, just in the middle of a dense residential neighborhood, you can knock down a home and put up a business? Or does it have to be in the building that's already there? Like, how does that work? Thank you. Those are my two questions.
I'm going to jump in, particularly because I know Ina's a little under the weather, and so I'm going to spare her some of the Q&A. Carolyn Grossman-Marr here from City Planning again. Thank you all so much for the time. So on auto repair, the short answer is it doesn't affect existing businesses. Those will still be able to remain compliant. I do want to mention that if businesses are using the sidewalk or curb space for their business, that is technically a violation. And if it's of a concern to the community board or members, you can report that to 311. The community board can follow up. Council members can follow up. That is a violation. Businesses are not allowed to use the street. But our real concern was prospectively to not make that condition worse with new businesses. So new businesses that go in would have to show a site plan and make sure that before they're allowed to locate, that they're actually proving that they can do their business inside the shop so that they're not reliant on the sidewalk or the curb space in the future. So we don't want to put businesses out of business. They can remain, though there are enforcement opportunities there. But for future businesses, they would have to go through that additional step of proving that they can do that successfully indoors. Now, corner stores, I want to say again, and I want to distinguish that's different than home occupation. So we are making changes, as Ina described, to what you can do inside an apartment, but that's not a store. That's a much more limited form of how people work inside an actual home. Corner stores is a limited permission process to allow somebody to open up a store in a residence district. You actually have in Community Board 17 many businesses that already exist in residence districts. So some good examples of this would be like on New York Avenue. There are sometimes, like a store here or there where there's not a full continuous street of retail. That's because that store maybe that's been an active commercial shop for 100 years, but it's not zoned to allow for stores on most of New York Avenue. Or I think Clarendon has a few stores here and there south of the hospital. So when you see in the neighborhood like a standalone store on a street that doesn't otherwise have stores, that's usually because that area is not zoned to allow stores. And we don't have a way to replicate that in zoning. So, we, in general, when if we don't have commercial zoning, we're not looking to change an entire street. But sometimes community boards actually want there to be a single store is a permission process that people can apply to you and to the city planning commission to ask for an exception to that rule. So it's not specific to what the building is there today. What it is specific to is the size that they can ask for. So 2,500 square feet is the maximum. That's roughly the size of like a bodega. If you think about your like a typical small storefront is 25 feet wide. So that's what we're talking about. That's the maximum somebody can ask for. And then they have to go through a process of an environmental review to show you and to show us that there aren't problems around permission. So I hope that answers your question. It's designed, it's a very special permission process. It's not all stores can open in a particular area.
Yeah, it sort of does, but I still have I don't know if I'm allowed to follow up. I don't want to waste everybody's time. And
you could, if you could just circle back and just allow the others to ask the question, Ms. Viglianti, or just put your hand back up and you'll get to follow up. All
okay.
right?
Yeah.
No problem. Ms. Martinez, Hazel Martinez.
Yes, good evening. I have a couple of questions myself, and one concern I have is the fact that when you all were creating this City of Yes proposal, did you consider the residents that are in this community? A lot of residents find themselves in mixed-use communities where there are residential homes, and then there's a small C2 inlay or whatever. And a lot of these businesses are not, really are a negative for us. And I see now they'll be getting even more rights to do other things. And I find that quite disturbing because there doesn't seem to be any kind of regulation. And it seems like a free for all. And now this gives them an authority to do it even more. And the other issue that I have is this the nightlife and the various sizes and what they can have, because it doesn't seem like there's much restriction right now.
Sure. Well, I think just to start with the first question, of course, we considered residents. It's our absolute goal
Ms. Grossman,
to
I
find
think
ways to
your signal's a
support
little choppy.
this business,
Maybe if you,
support the quality of life.
yeah, maybe if you just
Oh, am I, okay. Let me. I'm
yeah, shut down your video.
If you're able to interrupt it for a moment. That's a good
Or if
idea.
you shut down the video, it allows more bits to get through, and you could probably respond without the.
It's a great idea. Can you hear me now a little bit better?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So, first just to acknowledge the concern, right? Everybody wants to live in a community, in peace. We're, the whole city, we're living next to commercial uses. We at City Planning think our economy is really important. Our ability to access services and have the kinds of businesses in our neighborhood that make our neighborhoods good places for us to be and allow us to get things is important, but also being able to sleep at night is important. And we're really thinking, we're trying to do our best to balance those issues. I would certainly point out we talk to our colleagues at the Department of Buildings all the time, as well as at other agencies that deal with a lot of the conflicts that we hear about, noise complaints. When it comes to nightlife, we work very closely with the Mayor's Office of Nightlife, who has a lot of resources available to the community to help manage when issues do come up. So certainly just want to make sure that the community board is availing yourselves of all of the resources that are out there from the city to try and manage those situations when they arise. What we are trying to do, obviously we allow a lot of different businesses to exist on neighborhood streets, but sometimes we have places where we don't think, where we have rules that restrict them that don't make sense, right? We spoke about clean manufacturing in the presentation. Today, we're not allowing for people who, want to sell small jewelry, to open up a storefront. We're not allowing for, a Chuck E. Cheese to operate in our neighborhoods, even if that would really help parents. We're not allowing people to grow things indoors, even if that would help us, serve food to our neighborhoods. So what we're really trying to do is address a lot of the concerns that we've heard about different kinds of businesses that are being penalized, but we're certainly not looking to do so sacrificing quality of life. And in certain places in the regulations here, we have added additional safeguards on noise, on air quality to make sure that we're not introducing new kinds of uses that would, make that relationship harder. So nightlife, I think, was the second question. So today, you can have a restaurant of any size in a neighborhood. That restaurant can play music, but the second somebody dances to that music, that is illegal. And so what we are saying is that basically that it is okay for you to dance if the music is already allowed. But we only allow small venues. So 200 person or less, which is again about that size of a small, like a bodega size. So in that condition, we're saying that's okay on a neighborhood street. Large clubs and nightclubs belong in Manhattan, Midtown, or in our industrial areas. And that is the rule we're keeping. So we don't think it's right. We think it's both, it's hard to enforce. It's not really fair. And, in some people have argued that it's an issue of expression. that people can't dance to music. So we would allow for that, but only in the places where the music is already allowed and at the size that it's already allowed. And again, I would just say, like, we're certainly aware that there, everyone still has to comply with the noise code. Everyone still has to come to the community board for a liquor license. And there are a lot of resources available when those facilities become a nuisance that the city would really, would be happy to help the community board to struggle through those edge cases.
Thank you. Thank you for that response. I'm going to acknowledge Miss Bennett, Adele Bennett.
Oh, yes, good evening. Adele Bennett, committee member. My question, and I'm going to try to keep it brief, is in regards to putting a commercial business over a residence and even a large building. How would that work? I mean, if you put a commercial business over there and say that business fails, say it's an art studio and it fails, and they decide they want to put a club there or a small restaurant, will that be allowed?
So the rules have very specific controls on the kinds of businesses and on the separation. So a restaurant or a club could not locate immediately above a residence. It would have to be separated by at least a floor. It would have to have sound attenuation. It has to have a separate entrance. Those are some of the reasons that we don't think that that's a very likely outcome in an area like Community Board 17, where the buildings that you have are, mostly like an older storefront, maybe like 2 or 3 stories, where this really makes sense and where somebody might put a commercial use above a residential use would be in Midtown, right? In like a much larger office building where, like, the example I often give is, city planning, we're in a building that's 40 stories tall. And our building has vacancy, right? As many buildings in Manhattan do. If our building wanted to convert some of the building for housing, they would have to kick city planning out because the moment a home is put below us, our use is illegal. So those are the circumstances where we think that somebody might do that. In a smaller building, it's not really feasible, given that we're requiring sound protection and physical and different entrances.
Yes.
And we're limiting those connections.
Okay, now my next question in regard to micro businesses. What type of micro businesses were you referring to?
Sure. So what we're talking about, you should imagine like a UPS store or a post office. So a post office is allowed today because it's a government office. UPS is technically a print shop. But if you just want a store where you can pick up your package, that's not allowed under zoning today. So what happens that we see all over the city is like a truck that just parks on the street and delivers everybody's packages out of the truck. But if you did that same activity inside a store, we don't have a name for that.
Okay. Because the term micro business I've been hearing about is growing weed. And that's indoor, shall we say, farm.
So I think that the term we used in the presentation is micro distribution.
They use the same one.
Pardon me?
They said they use the same one.
I gotcha. So the state is licensing where it is appropriate to grow cannabis in New York City, as well as sell it. I think everybody here is well aware that there's a lot of abuse of those rules right now. I believe there are people who are coming to the community board to get legal licenses, but that there's also enormous crackdown on the illegal cannabis issues. It's another place where I would certainly say the board, and I believe you are already doing this, should be submitting any known illegal facilities, whether that's selling or growing, to the city, so that the city is currently doing quite a bit of enforcement on those issues.
Yes. Well, one quick question, essentially on this topic. For those micro businesses, can they come in a residential area and start growing on an open lot?
So again, not about micro distribution facilities that in our proposal, but regarding cannabis growing, in some cases, the state allows it in a home. I believe under state law, it's only allowed indoors, not on an open lot as you're describing. But again, that's not something, we're not licensing cannabis through this proposal.
I know. And we do
Thank you, Ms.
land use.
Bennett.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. Joan Bacardine, you're acknowledged.
Thank you so much, Joan Alexander Bacardine, Community Board resident and committee member. I have two questions, please. Regarding goal 3, option 13, as it pertains to the concept of the light use for the tire shop, the light use of auto repair, would the tire shop fall within that construct? Or will you be providing definitions of these businesses or these terms so that it's clear for the layperson what we're talking about? And
yes, sure. So
Okay,
we're happy to provide some more. The basic way that we're distinguishing is there is a state license for heavy repair, so we can give you that definition. A tire shop is not part of that, so it is called light repair. Tire shops are allowed in commercial districts today. So what we are doing is actually making it harder for them to locate. So we're saying today you can a tire business is legal on most commercial streets. In the future, we are saying you must go to the BSA to provide the plan that I described to make sure that you're not spilling out into the sidewalk.
okay, because there's a lot of
tire repair, and that's exactly the kinds of things that we're concerned about too. I think if I understand your question, we see a lot of tire repair shops, and again, everybody who has a car needs a tire repair shop, sometimes. So we understand the need for the business, but we are concerned about safety and when they spill out onto the street. So that is what we are trying to prevent through this action.
Okay, thank you. And for my final question is regarding your public review timeline, wherein you mentioned that there will be public hearings or a public hearing in January. My question pertains to the public hearing that happened today that was not well reported, that is at Borough Hall. Will there be another public hearing that will be well publicized for Brooklyn so that more of us can attend and provide our insight as it pertains to this text amendment?
Sure. So I can't speak to what happened at Borough Hall. I believe that's the Borough Board,
Okay.
which I believe Community Board 17 is part of the Borough Board. So I'm not sure if folks here have more information about that. What I can tell you is, under the process that's described, under law, the proposal started with city planning, basically putting a proposal forward and then referring this proposal out to each of the 59 community boards across the city. That was, of course, after about 1.5 years of us doing outreach and the 5 public info sessions that Ina described in the presentation. But in terms of the formal process, we're now in that period where all the community boards are reviewing this, like tonight and like the full board meeting we had
on the 20th.
with CP17 in December. And we've done that about 100 times over the last 2 months. So we've been really busy out all across the city, and that'll continue basically through January.
So the public hearing that is referred to in the slide deck, it refers to your public hearing.
The City Planning Commission public hearing, which was just announced. And I believe we sent that to the community board yesterday. That the hearing that we will hold at City Planning will be on January 24th. So that's another opportunity for the community board, or anybody to come out and express their opinion. Of course, the community board and this land use committee, have a special role in that you will send us your formal recommendation. You may choose to mirror that, or any member may choose to, say anything they want at our hearing as well. But that's the formal, that's our process. The borough board, and the borough president have their own process as well.
Understood. But okay,
and-
understood.
And I'll
Thank
just say, anyone who's looking to, like, be notified of our meetings or other upcoming things, on the link that we shared and that's in the chat right now, there's also, sign up for information. So we'll be continuing to apprise everyone. Obviously, the community boards get direct information as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Acknowledging Allison Martinez.
Thank you. Good evening. Just a couple questions. Are there any limitations on the types of food, products that can be grown in the urban agricultural space? And if there are, what are they?
It's a great question. Not under zoning, right? And part of the reason is that we don't think, that zoning is a particularly good tool to be trying to distinguish between whether you're growing tomatoes or whether you're growing cannabis or growing potatoes or growing anything else, right? We want to say that it's legal to grow. And when the state, for instance, has a particular process for licensing cannabis, that there are experts who understand that licensure process. DOB, when you're filing for what uses you can put in a different space, it would be very hard for, a building inspector to really understand the distinction between whether you're growing a tomato or a potato or cannabis plant. So the zoning is not particular to that, but sometimes there are other rules that are particular to that. So obviously I'm referencing cannabis because cannabis is, a specific place where, like, just because zoning is not saying anything about it, there is a state law that's very specific to it. There may be other places where, like, the Department of Health is regulating whether you can grow other kinds of ingestible plant. I can't say I'm an expert on that, but I imagine there are other controlled substances, for instance, that are illegal to possess in New York City at all. So I would imagine growing them is part of that. I don't know that there are foods that would trigger that. Obviously, like, agriculture and growing things is not the same as, like, having a cow or, like, other forms of, of agriculture. Those things would not, of course, be covered here. Does that answer your question?
It does, but I think that's, to me, like, a concern, because a lot of people, especially as we have really basically completely although there was an attempt to have regulation, as we're seeing, we have a lot of people who are really complaining about the different types of stores, and now this would be, like, even more ability to grow, within homes, even if you could do this within indoors. So I'm a little bit concerned about the lack of some type of regulation or some kind of limitation on it. And the same with the corner store in that same sense, in terms of what can be sold, because now we're seeing in our community a proliferation of smoke shops that also sell candy and everything a normal corner store would sell. And now that it just seems like there'd be a little bit more freedom in terms of doing that as well, without the limitations that I think a lot of people would think we need.
Sure, I appreciate the comment. I want to be clear that we're not illegalizing indoor agriculture in a home. That's not. This is indoor agriculture in a commercial setting. So just to be clear on that, and also just to be clear
Right,
that
but
it does not regulate what can be sold in a store today.
But if you can now create commercial space in the upstairs, how is that now not limited, not affected by this then? Because if now I can do that.
Right. So that's why I wanted to be really clear. When we're talking about upstairs, we're not talking about in a residence setting. So I think for those, when you picture Manhattan, I think it's much easier for people to picture what a commercial use looks like upstairs, right? Like office buildings have commercial uses maybe to the 80th floor. when you're talking about in a district like Community District 17, the only place that you typically see an upstairs commercial use would be maybe in the hospitals, or sometimes on like Nostrand, you might see a medical office on the second story, right?
So it
And
doesn't
that,
apply to mixed use buildings is what you're saying.
it applies to a mixed use building if the commercial is separately entranced and physically separated from the residences. So it really only occurs either in a new building that's designed to have commercial on the first and also second story, or in a place that was designed for like maybe to have a doctor's office on the second story. And now that could be occupied by a different kind of office or a different kind of commercial use. But again, not a nightclub, not a restaurant, because in those cases, having it on the second story would mean that your third story would have to be vacated too, because we're requiring physical separation between the different kinds of uses. So this is not something, because of those physical separation rules, would be very, very difficult or near, impossible to put on a street, like, again, I'll just say like a street like Nostrand, right? Where you're talking about ground floor retail, older buildings, and a few stories of residences above. That's not the condition where we think this would be. It would allow you to reoccupy where those already had a commercial space, but it's a proposal that's much, much more possible in a higher density area where commercial uses, again, I'll give the example, like a 40-story building. If you wanted to make half of that building residential and leave half of it commercial, that building might have 4 elevators. And so it's much more possible to physically separate those. That's what this is intended to promote.
And is there a limitation or a ratio of what you can do in terms of commercial versus those residential spaces? Because I could imagine that as a landlord, I might want to work to eventually have it become mostly commercial, because there are a lot fewer limitations in terms of what I can do in terms of raising rents or any of those other things, protections that residential tenants would have rather than a commercial one.
Yep, absolutely. In your commercial districts, the second story would exhaust what you could do. You couldn't build more commercial even on your commercial streets, based on how much ratio that we use would be what we call the floor area ratio, right? So under zoning, a floor area ratio is assigned to commercial uses and it's assigned to residential uses. So in no case in those districts could you have more than the 2 stories. In higher density areas, again, certainly Midtown, but even a place like downtown Brooklyn or around Atlantic Avenue, those rules look very different. You don't have, those are districts like C4, C5, and C6. And you have, I think, only maybe 1 block of that in the entire district.
Okay. My last question, I just wanted to know if, I know this is not something that zoning does, but are you working with any of the agencies like maybe SBS to maybe try or some of the advocacy groups to try to find like a way to work towards also creating some kind of affordable commercial rents or stabilization? Because this is, as you're making a massive change, it's an opportunity to actually address some of the needs that we definitely hear from small businesses in the communities we support.
Yeah, absolutely. Really great questions. Absolutely, we're working with small business services all the time. A lot of these proposals came from their membership and from roundtables that they hosted with folks all over the city. They are constantly looking for resources that they can drive back towards businesses to help people invest and maintain their businesses in New York City. Commercial rent control is a really tough one. It's a little bit above my pay grade, and I understand it's like a very complicated legal question as to whether the city or the state can put those kinds of rules in place. From our part, we see this as supportive of that, because we know that when rules are, restrict a business or just make businesses spend a lot of money on lawyers, or expediters just to try and get through our regulation processes, we're putting costs on businesses that hurt small business the most, right? So we see this as supportive of the same. It's not commercial rent control, understood. we think there, there are a lot of things that SBS does every day, trying to drive more grants and resources. And we're trying to think of interesting and thoughtful ways to align this work with their programs. So again, when we think about makers and getting, small businesses that might be, making things in Brooklyn, maybe in a home setting today, maybe we can get more of them into storefronts. Maybe somebody who makes salsa can use the back of a pizza shop. Like, can we find resources to do that? I think they're really interested in that as well. And we've been continuing conversations.
Thank you. All right, circling back. So I'm going to assume that these are the last three. I think in the order of the hands being raised is Hazel Martinez.
Yes, yes, I have two other things to speak about, because you mentioned trucking fleets and trucking fleets and restaurants with loud music. I can just roll it into one. Who is going to regulate these, or because right now there's no enforcement. We have loud music. I live near a C2 inlay, and the music is loud. Right now I'm talking to you and I'm looking at a long tractor trailer on the street. Our streets are filled with commercial vehicles that park there all the time whenever they feel like there's no enforcement whatsoever. And now they just seem to have carte blanche to do whatever they want based on the city of yes.
Appreciate the question. It's definitely, this is still a proposal, so can't blame us yet for anything you're seeing out on the streets, but the point is well taken. I'll start with the nightlife. I want to drop a resource in the chat. I mentioned earlier, we work really closely with the Mayor's Office of Nightlife. One of the programs that was created a few years ago is a program called Mend NYC, which is a way that the city tries to help people who are having consistent noise issues, quality of life issues, work with those facilities to come up with possible answers, right? Of course, the noise code always applies. Everyone can always call 311, but we understand that that's a really difficult way to deal with this. We know of many good circumstances where people have come to the table and money to put more, noise cancellation materials in, or move the location of speakers and address some of these really common sense things. So the Mayor's Office of Nightlife is really happy to help try and steer that. I put a link to that resource. Would super encourage you. It sounds like you might be that might be something that can help you. Look, music is allowed in restaurants.
Yes,
we're not,
but I don't want to hear it in my home.
Understood, and the noise code does make that illegal, and there's a process for dealing with that.
It's not enforced.
It is a very challenging process. I understand that. So
Mend is really not a great agency. If they can't get in touch with the other party, then nothing happens. I can tell you that.
Understood. It does require both sides. If you're having that challenge, I would also say, and this is certainly something for the community board, you can reach out to the Mayor's Office of Nightlife and see if there's some options there. But look, I want to acknowledge that bad actors are out there. Managing noise in the city is a real challenge. That's true today. That's true tomorrow. Businesses are allowed to make noise, but they're not allowed to make noise at the level that, you hear it in your house. We don't believe we're exacerbating that through this proposal, right? Because, music is already allowed. We're not changing where it's allowed. We are restricting the size of facilities that have scheduled music in them. I did want to address your other question about trucks. Again, also, fact of life in the city, I have trucks on my street too. I understand, the challenge. It is a multi-pronged issue in a city where we consume a lot of stuff. Almost all of it comes in by truck. The city is trying to find ways to deal with that need, the demand for trucks more responsibly in our neighborhoods. So again, just to, you know, what we're trying to do here is find a way that a small storefront can get packages and materials into it, and then people can deliver those things by foot or by bicycle. And by doing that, relieve a little bit of the demand for trucks on our streets, right? And certainly a little bit of the demand for trucks like parking on our streets all day, you know, just so that they can get into the neighborhood to deliver all the stuff that, you know, that people have.
It's not about delivery, it's about permanent parking of trucks
Sure.
that shouldn't be on the street.
Absolutely, and I suspect you're probably also aware that some, you know, there are enforcement issues there. Commercial parking is not allowed on a lot of the streets we see it. Again, citywide issue. You know, enforcement a real challenge. Something our colleagues at Department of Transportation are constantly trying to work with the NYPD on. Zoning doesn't have a lot of tools because we are regulating what happens inside the storefront, right, inside a building. But one thing we think we can do is by allowing a business to do package delivery that, you know, can be delivered by, you know, by foot, is just reduce a little bit of that demand.
Thank you. I guess Ms. Viglianti, you're circling back, and Ms. Bakruddin, just do you have your hand up, or is that from before? All right, Ms.
Okay,
go ahead,
so
Ms. Viglianti.
thanks. Yeah, before I circle back to that about the corner stores, I would just like to piggyback on this truck issue, because the number 4 about the loading docks, a lot of the reason why the trucks are on the street, you know, is because they're unloading on the street. So it seems like a bit of a contradiction not to have businesses provide loading docks. So is that just for business? I mean, I don't really understand that, because we need loading docks.
Yeah,
For business.
I appreciate the ability to circle back to this. And we agree, loading docks in general for new buildings are really important. So the way zoning works today is when you're constructing a new building, you look in the zoning resolution, you say, what kind of use am I? Am I an office building? Am I a manufacturing use? Am I a store, you know, a retail store? Am I a grocery store? How big am I? And you make a calculation, and that calculation tells you how many loading docks your building needs to have. Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3? Is it 4? Right? And then you build your building according to that. And we're not changing that, right? We think that's a very good rule that new buildings should build those loading docks. The issue is, let's say my building was built 100 years ago, and I, you know, used to have an office, but now I want to put in, you know, a brewery, or I want to put in, you know, somebody who makes apparel. All of a sudden, the zoning tells me I have a different loading dock standard. So maybe my building was built with 1 loading dock, but the zoning now says I need 2 loading docks. But the building was built 100 years ago. So in order to tenant that space, you would have to cut a hole in the side of an existing building. So we don't, you know, what we're, you know, we don't think it's worth having vacant space just because, you know, the fashion designer can't build, you know, can't cut the hole in the building, right? If they want to go in that space and they think it works for them, you know, then we're willing to take, you know, to take the existing number of loading docks. We don't think there's a perfect science for, you know, whether, you know, that use needs 1 or 2 loading docks in any case. We recognize that whether your building was required to build it or not, people are doing a lot of different things, right? Enforcement is really like a separate issue. And so this is really about the adaptive reuse of an existing building, right? Every building.
So if it was a new building that was being built, it would have to have loading docks per whatever the regulations.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So then I just want to make one comment about the tire shops, and then my last question. The tire shops, when you're talking about them spilling out onto the street, when you have a flat tire, you're going to get your tire fixed on the street. And a lot of these tire shops are sort of like that. They're just storefronts and they come out and they fix your tire. So is this going to be like that they're not going to be allowed to do that anymore? Because that seems to be just another way of trying to get people to stop driving. And that's a whole other issue, but what are the rules exactly for tire shops?
Yeah. So that's it's not legal today, just to be clear. A business doing, of course you have to drive up to the store, right? But a business that is routinely, changing out the tires using the parking lane, that's not a legal use of New York City streets. Of course, it happens in a lot of places. It's sort of accepted in, I think, a lot of neighborhoods, though, again, as I say, like, there is an enforcement action that's possible in those circumstances. What we're not really trying to upset the apple cart on existing businesses, but there are many businesses in the city when they're built. You can build a new tire shop where you drive your car into the tire shop and your tire is fixed inside the building. And the benefit of that is obviously for a commercial street, where people are walking. We're not talking about an industrial area, right? We're talking about Nostrand Avenue. We're talking about, like a main street of the city. We would like to not have people using that to do considerable auto work. We think it's a safety issue. We think it's the life of the street. We think it affects the businesses next door negatively. So this is an attempt to try and balance that by not harming the existing businesses, but by saying, don't replicate that in the future on our commercial main streets.
Okay. And then, so my last thing is just to circle back to the corner stores. I'd like more clarification on that, maybe. Because so you have a small, like an avenue, which has got, it's a small row of homes, and you can put a corner store on one side now. And then what if someone wants to put a corner store on the other side? Is there going to be any limitations to how many corner stores can be in any particular area? And then if you can put corner stores on every corner, then, that makes it a commercial
district.
Right.
Then you're not really a residential district anymore. I 100% agree. So let me try and give an example again. What's a good area you've got, like, where we're thinking about homes in the district? Something like, I don't know, like Avenue D or Foster.
No, not Avenue D so much, because Avenue D is commercial. Say Foster Avenue.
Yeah. Okay. So like,
a four-corner area on Foster Avenue. Say Schenectady and Foster, say.
Great. So I own a home on Schenectady and Foster, and I want to start, let's say I have a garage and I want to put, we'll just pick something unobjectionable. I want to put a tiny little bookstore in my garage on the corner. In order to do that, what this proposal says is I will go to the City Planning Commission, or go to the Department of City, and I'd like to turn my garage into a bookstore. They'll say, great, are you less than 2,500 square feet? Okay, I am, because I'm a garage, right? Go do an environmental review, right? A full, exhaustive environmental review that studies traffic effects, that studies noise effects, that studies air quality effects, neighborhood character effects, all of that, right? The full works here. Do that, and then fill out my land use application. Send my land use application to the community board. The community board looks at, there'll be very high bar of findings that say, does this improve neighborhood character? Does it not have any negative effects on the neighborhood character? Does it not have any environmental effects? Does it not bring traffic? Basically, like, is this desired? The community board then weighs in, with a recommendation, just as, as you're doing on this proposal, you would do on that proposal. That comes to the City Planning Commission. The City Planning Commission looks at those same high bars of findings. Is this improve the neighborhood character? Is this a desired use? Does it have no neighborhood effects? And then can decide whether to approve that application. So I say all of that to say this is a very high bar, right? This is not go file with DOB and then you have a neighborhood corner store. This is a very, intense process to gain permission for that store. If a second store then also, applied later, they would have to take into account the first store being there, right? So the same questions: am I bringing traffic to the neighborhood? Am I bringing noise to the neighborhood? Am I bringing, is this a quality of life concern? Are all the direct questions that the city planning commission has to find in order to approve the application. And I tend to agree with you that, the presence of another store may itself say, hey, that actually the first one was okay. We felt like that was appropriate in a residential area, but now 2 is too much, and you might have it. So this again, I can't stress enough. This is a discretionary action. It's intended to take all of those things into account, and it's being created because we think, rezoning to commercial in a residential area is often inappropriate, right? So neighborhoods have often asked us in the past, we're not looking for a commercial rezoning. We just want to legalize this one store, right? And we don't have a tool for recognizing when a store by itself is appropriate, but commercial in general is not. This is that tool that will be available for you to use or reject, right? The community can say, no, we don't want it. You would think that an owner who understood that would not bother to go through the process, but that process will exist for you to tell the commission, do not approve this, and they would have to meet a very, very high bar in order to approve it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Viglianti. And I guess we're closing out the session with Allison Martinez.
Well, 2 things. One, I feel like this corner store one can actually, where I could, now you've put together a proposal where I could, convert my garage basically into a commercial use, would actually have more impact on terms of quality of life in areas that I think is problematic, especially if we don't have any real way of limiting the types of business that could utilize that opportunity. So it's not clear to me that the outcome, that it's worth the exercise is worth what we could potentially risk in residential communities, especially that want to remain residential primarily. I also
may I just make one clarification?
Sure.
The application process would allow you to be specific about the uses. So the tool we're creating allows for a wide range of uses to apply. If someone applied, it would allow you to apply for a specific use.
Yes, but we do know that community boards, in reality, it's just advisory, and a lot of times things are yeses without even the people in that vicinity of that area even knowing what the project is or what the business is, but they're the ones who are left to deal with the aftermath. So, and since we're not proposing that in this specific case because of that hyper local impact, that we're changing what the voting interest is, it still can have like a high risk for communities who don't feel like they're empowered to really have real say at the end of the day of what happens where they live.
I understood. I just wanted to make sure you that I clarified that one point.
Okay. So, and the last thing, outside of this small business project, I just want to know, when will we be receiving the presentation deck for the housing opportunities, which I think is a lot more problematic of a proposal set than this, and community will need a lot more time to go through the different proposals within the housing opportunities.
Understood, and really appreciated. So as Ina mentioned earlier, housing opportunity, that proposal is still under development. So there's some initial concepts that have been put forward by the city, and that process has just started its environmental review. Just at sort of the end part of 2023. I'll put in the chat some links to the information that's already available. But in terms of the formal process for housing, it's not expected to go into its public review until next spring. That being said, if the community board is interested in learning more about, where it's at right now in the environmental stages, I think city planning, my colleagues would be happy to start that conversation early, understanding that nothing is actually in the public process. So I'll defer to the land use committee here. Certainly follow up with Ina if you're interested in something more informational on that account. We just want to not confuse the actual capital P process, but there certainly is information about housing and what is conceptually being analyzed under the environmental review right now. But you should expect that more detailed proposal and zoning sometime in the spring next year.
I think we would definitely like that, especially because I'm sure you're aware that this community is already in the process of trying to have a rezoning, and the impact of those proposed changes. We're not even sure whether or not our rezoning is even on the table at all right now because of all these other initiatives that are being pushed. So being able to have some sense of what's, the findings are in the environmental review process, or what would be helpful in terms of fine tuning and engaging.
Sure. So I'll put some links in now, and then certainly why don't we follow up, and we can make sure that we connect the land use committee with our housing team.
Absolutely. And I'll share my contact information in the chat.
I don't know if Ms. Fields, is your hand raised?
Yeah, I just want to say something real quick. I would like to definitely get the information about the housing, to get more information, because it does pertain to housing, and more people in the housing committee might be interested in some of this information as well. So if you can keep me in the loop with this, I would really appreciate it.
Okay. Yeah, that request is coming from our housing chair, Ms. Grossman-Meager and Ms. Gusenfeld. All right, I guess there's no more questions. In closing, thank you. Thank you for coming to do the presentation. We'll gather our comments, concerns, or everybody, could gather their comments and concerns, get them over to me, and we'll try to get something over to the DCP. Just formalizing our concerns as a community board. We need everybody's from this committee's opinions, plus I have to gather the opinions of other board members in order to get something formal over to the DCP. Ms. James?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Don't we have to vote on this in don't we need to vote on this in January? At the January board meeting?
You mean vote on the actual comments and concerns?
Well, make a recommendation to whether or not we
Yeah,
accept
yeah.
it.
Yeah, we would. We would.
Because I mean, what we can say is that based on the review, if there's certain things that concern us, so I mean, very quickly, and it will be in interest of time, if you want to identify areas that take a vote by show of hands, what areas we are concerned about, and then just take a vote to say, I'm just proposing to move this forward, right? That we recommend to the board to accept these elements of the opportunity plan. But we did have concerns with these particular ones, and that they may not be in the best interest for our community.
Yeah, we can vote on that. Our executive meeting is on Monday, and we could probably have something in place, which is what I was trying to do. Yeah, so we'll vote on that, but we'll bring that in as something outside of this, so we could speak more freely. And really, I need to be able to get a forum to have everybody's concerns galvanized, because it's there's 20 of how many people in here? There's several of us, so I need that, and as a full board, I need the other opinions as well. So hopefully we can bring it to the actual general board for this month with our concerns, and then I'll have to add the board's concerns, whatever board's members have concerns at the meeting, and then hopefully we could get that out following that meeting as a formal response. Fair enough? Thank you. Mr. Holland?
Yes, yes, thank you, Mr. Frey. I just have one
Mhm.
quick question.
Mhm.
It's a very lengthy presentation, and to
Mhm.
recall some of the items that we may want to comment on, will we have that presentation made available to us to
Well,
look
yeah,
at?
we have it available to us. We can have that distributed to you. This was distributed in our group chat, but I have Ms. Frazier distribute the presentation deck
Oh, okay, I didn't
to the
see it in
committee
chat.
members after the meeting. All right?
Thank you, thank you.
All right, no problem. Thank you, Ms. Gusenfeld. Thank you, Ms. Grossman-Miga. We'll be in communications
Right now.
shortly. Appreciate you for the time. You're sharing it now, Ms. Frazier?
Yes, I'm going into the chat.
All right, thank you. Again, thank you for your time, and we'll be in contact. If I have any additional questions, I'll try to send you something on the side just for clarity. And if you actually have resources that speak more in detail pertaining to the rules for like the commercial mixed uses, you know, something that says some sort of language that we could read that says about the separation of spaces and can speak more to that, just so that should I have anything that, you know, those rules can clarify, I won't put anything that can, you know, possibly be dismissed for some rules. Do you have any resources that can speak to the rules and the limitations for the ads and variances that you're proposing? Do the re-
And
do
the
the,
business
does the
types.
resource link? Yeah, and the
Yes,
resource
it's
link. Do you?
specifically vertical uses can
Uh,
direct part of the zoning text that speaks to that.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have everything for each section? Like that would show, because obviously each proposal has, you know, supportive rules or supportive limitations that restricts certain actions. And I would just like to have something that the committee members and my board members could actually reference that I could possibly distribute within the next 2 weeks so that when they're formalizing their concerns, they actually have the rules in front of them. And they're
Yep.
not formalizing something that a rule could dispel.
So the rules themselves, the changes we've proposed, are about 1,000 pages long. So we have we have them online. They have a lot of comments, like trying to help you get through them and understand. So I can direct you to those as well, but they are very lengthy because for 18 different proposals and a lot of different organizational changes, there's just a lot of text in there. So that's why I want to sort of be specific to directing you to the pieces of that that are most fruitful and useful. We can give you a presentation as well that's just a little bit more technical than what you saw today. That may also be a helpful intermediary resource. Those are also in the link that I sent online, but we can follow up in it with an email just directing to you to those specifically. So I want you to have the most technical version of it, which again is that like sort of 1,000-page, like that is the legal change we're making. And that has like, when you're talking about like the exact sound attenuation rules that are apply when you're moving a use to the second floor, all of those are in there and I can direct you to those. But I also don't expect everybody to read the 1,000-page document in its entirety. So we'll give you, you know, the sort of middle ground synopsis too, if that's helpful.
Yeah, that helps. You could give access to that too. Is it something that's a PDF that could be searched for specific words that we could probably dive in? If like somebody's looking for something specific, they could type a keyword search and possibly get to the area. Is there a table of contents that could sift you through the 1,000 pages and get someone to a specific area? So yeah, we would like the access to the. Yeah, so yeah, you could give us access to the, you know, the more layman's version presentation so I could distribute that. But yes, some of us are a little bit more tech savvy that could probably utilize the bigger book or the bigger format to try to find specific questions. And I might need something like that in order to sift through or to make sure that as I'm taking into concerns, because I might have multiple things addressing one issue for myself to be able to, you know.
Yep, it's up
check.
on our website, but we'll send you in our follow-up email the direct link to it. And then as you said, a sort of table of contents. there's a chart in our presentations that show you how the 18, like where they are in the document. So we'll provide all of that in an easy follow-up.
Thank you very much. Again, thank you. Good night, and we'll be in touch.
Much appreciated. Have a good night,
All
everyone.
right, take care. Have a good night and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Good night.
Let's see. Before we move along, does anybody have any comments? And before we, go to the, I guess we should discuss it now. What are the concerns? I mean, obviously through the conversation, we know what the concerns are. And anybody who has concerns, please get them over to me as soon as possible. Because I think everything got pushed back. Our executive meeting is actually on Monday. The community board meeting is after that. So at least as a committee, I'd like to be able to go in front of the community board and say what our concerns are, galvanize those concerns for them before they before our board members add their input, so we could get something out before the end of the month. But does anybody have anything that wasn't spoken on or speaking that they want to need more elaboration on, that hopefully that the materials that they give us don't give? Now's the time to discuss it. Anything? Cool. All right. I did leave out a part of the chairperson's report I did do research on the actual zoning for the CS project. It is zoned C4-2, and that's kind of recognized on a residential standpoint as like an R6. So that's how they're able to build the amount of apartments that they're building as of right on that actual parcel of land. There is like a parking restriction or a requirement for one parking spot for every 300 square feet of usage, but technically they're utilizing that to build the residencies on a commercial space, and it's allowed on a non-contextual basis. I just wanted to add that in. Moving the agenda along, unfinished business. I'll start. We did get something from the team for the Shirley Chisholm Recreation Center. It's a Meet the Primes event. I believe I shared the flyer. I want to say it's on the 15th of January.
I'm sorry, meet the what?
Meet the primes, and that basically means meet the primary contractors for the construction for the Shirley Chisholm project. It's not including all of the specialty trades, but it is the opportunity for the community to actually meet the initial builders, I guess, the primary builders by trade that are going to be building the project moving forward. And then it's an opportunity for I guess contractors and possibly workers too. I wouldn't restrict that, to have the opportunity to see what aspect or what area they'll have the ability to actually, partake in. They were speaking about the certain aspects of what trades would actually get awarded the work, and it's a good forum for. It's actually on the 18th. Sorry, it's on the 18th at Brooklyn FET between 5 and 7. It's a good opportunity to hold them accountable and to ask questions and see what the opportunities are. The flyer actually shows what areas. It goes beyond construction because it has like food services equipment and in other areas that more local people could actually get involved with outside of the actual construction portion. But it'll be interesting. So that's what I have for unfinished business.
Is it possible to have it posted in the chat? I just don't remember it come to my attention.
Oh yeah. Let me see if I could. I'll share that now. I don't know. Can you share flyers on this? Just wanted to add that we need to focus a little on carbon neutrality, more buildings and more commercial users.
And did they give a list of the prime contractors already, or is that something we'll find out when we get there?
Oh yeah, it's actually on the flyer. I'm reposting it in our group chat now. I think I had it. Let's see, it was there. I didn't repost on this. Sorry. It was posted on Tuesday in the group chat. I'm just trying to. How you reply again? Is that the way? There we go. Yeah. It should be updated in new. The list of trades on the right of the flyer. And I guess to sign up for the event would be the QR code on the bottom. Yes, I'll email the flyer to Miss Frazier. I guess we'll email the flyer when she gets an opportunity. And yeah, it'll be a good date. That's an event that you want to meet because you're actually meeting the faces of the contractors that are doing the hiring. That's the idea.
My apologies.
All
Are
right.
you saying that you posted it in the chat, the flyer?
Yeah, the land use chat. Should I put it in the executive chat? Which
No, I
chat
mean
would
I'm in the
be-
land use chat right now. I could be just missing it.
Okay. Yeah, I just posted it a couple minutes ago. PDF, it says SCRC, Meet the Primes. Right underneath the massive snowstorm expected in New York City. I'll get it over to you. Hold on.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll get it over to you. Any other unfinished business?
That for that meeting in particular is for the contractors. The actual employment based on the PLA agreement that Maurice Durant is supposed to be spearheading, that will come after this event. So basically what they're doing is seeing all of the potential contractors who will then potentially be hiring in the community. All right. So that's why it's important for everyone to attend this and the next one that's coming, because there is some technicalities that have to be worked out with understanding the PLA agreement, how it applies to our MBE, how it applies to a non-MBE, which is minority, business enterprise, or WMBE, woman minority business enterprise. Those are the technicalities of this that we should be at least understanding partially, if not thoroughly enough, to really be able to take advantage of what's going on.
Yes. Yes. So if you know anybody that's local that's currently doing trades, your handyman, somebody that does a specialty trade that verbatim, this could potentially be an opportunity because of the PLA agreement for that person to actually end up in a unionized trade and have access to pensions and actually, take their talents to the next level. So you don't really get these opportunities much. The doorways to enter these construction trades are very limited. So yes, if you know anybody, this is the time to try to help that person, get to the next level. And that next level could be, a job with benefits. So in addition to having the skill that they do on the side, they'd be able to have the opportunity to actually get a career out of it. But interest size. There's rules in place as far as hiring. I'm not sure what the thing is. There are rules in place, and we are observing, or we will be observing the percentages, which were the minimums that they asked for. But we have to have these conversations in public forums like the one we're going to have on the 18th to hold them accountable and to hold McKissick and any other organization pertaining to this accountable. A lot has happened. A lot of things have been awarded that haven't been discussed. So, that opportunity, you'll see there's some trades that are actually missing from the list, which is interesting. That possibly means that, that portion of the work has already been distributed. And, that day would be a day to see how does the community have an opportunity in any facet of getting the opportunity to enter those particular portions. So that form will be good, but it's just the beginning.
So just my clarification. So the city hired McKissick to be able to do the same role, for example, that they performed at LaGuardia to select contractors for this project. Is that correct? That it's their role to do it?
So
No,
it's not.
the awardment. Hold on, I got this. The awardment is actually still going to be through the structure, through Lend-Lease Bogus, right? And the DDC, because they're the actual. Correct me if I'm wrong. They're the actual, not general contractor, but construction manager of the project.
Okay.
Right. The ultimate decision is truly up to them, but they have restrictions in place that are requiring that a certain percentage of the project go to minority at a minimum. At a minimum, a certain percentage of the project goes to minority businesses. And the PLA restriction actually has rules in it depending on who gets awarded, right? So even if you had a small contractor that got awarded the potential project and you have family members and he has, he knows people, this may be an opportunity to come into that trade as an apprentice and actually skip the logistics of actually getting into the trade, right? So it's not like a complete pass. You still have to go through all the safety protocols and stuff like that. But it is an opportunity that maybe once in a lifetime for businesses should they take advantage of it. And you can add whatever you need to add, Oz, if I missed anything.
So basically, McKissick's function is compliance of the MBE law, right? And in the same way, the engineering part of it, which is Studio Gang, is for the compliance also. Because of the size of the contract, mandatory 30% of that contract needed to go to a minority, a woman,
business
entity,
enterprise. Yeah.
business enterprise, because of those rules that are in place. Now, the technicality of it is that you have to pay attention to, in particular, how they are actually finding or fixing these compliances. Sometimes, if they say they cannot find people to fill the positions, whether contractors or whether workers, they turn around and they get to write a waiver that states that they can't do it. So in particular, McKissick's goal is to enforce and make sure that Lend-Lease and the other contractors that Lend-Lease hires as primes do not just get a quick pass to write the waiver and say they can't find the 30%. That is what they're supposed to be doing. We shall see. And that is why I have made it one of my main things that I speak to Maurice Durant, who is the person that is overseeing in terms of that the hiring portion for the workers, and then Brittany Rivera, which is the person that is dealing with the contractors from McKissick, because the compliance in particular is something that has to be enforced and always taken scrutinized to make sure that it's being done correctly. Because a lot of the times, if you don't have that in place, a waiver is written off and they say they just can't find qualified people. And that's it. And because it's a design build project and it has a deadline or time frame, that is how they could get away with it. So this is what in particular McKissick is supposed to be negating. Let's see.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any other unfinished business? Hearing none. Ms. James, how do we want to formalize this vote in regards to these concerns? I guess that we have to get something official over, right? Do we just vote or do we make a motion to, how do we do that tonight so that I can move forward with something to bring to the executive board and possibly put on the agenda for the January meeting? What
Yeah, I
would be
mean, I don't, what areas did people find, like, can you list 2 or 3 areas which you found very objectionable? I mean, wouldn't want to have the city include in it? Because I doubt it's going to be accepted by the city council like as is. So that means we can weigh in and say what areas we think, are not workable for us. So what were the areas of the three most significant areas which we found objectable to? So people state that we can take a vote on it and say these are the areas that we will not find acceptable.
All right. I think that I was clear inside of the conversations, but okay. Could somebody make a motion? I guess to galvanize that before we move on to new business, and then I guess in the discussion portion we could hash out the specific areas that we want attention paid to, and then before it's finalized, we'll circle back and make sure that we capture as much of the details as possible in our open forum. Fair enough. Does everyone have the presentation in front of them? Or I guess you've taken to memory what specific areas you have the issues with. Can someone make a motion to vote on this?
I would make the motion, but I don't know exactly how to frame it. So I make a motion to vote on galvanizing the issues that we have. I'm
Yeah,
not
the issues
sure.
that you have. Yeah, to galvanize, well, to formalize the issues that we have with the city of Yes economic opportunity. That's fair enough. And then we could open it up for discussion.
Okay, so I make the motion for what you said.
Right. We're now open for discussion. For the record, we know that the areas were, pull up the presentation because we don't have it now. It is in the chat for everyone that has access to the group chat, and I think Ms. Frazier actually distributed the slide deck. So to make sure that we hit, or to make sure that I know there was a ton of issues, but specifically, what were the concerns? I know that the commercial use on the upper floors was a concern, number 5, right? Anybody?
Well, the corner stores are a concern for me.
So number 5, I'm just going by the numbers. Number 5 was
Okay,
a
that's
concern.
number 16.
Let's see, number 16. Number 16 was a concern. I think number 14 was a concern, the micro distribution, right?
Yes.
14 was a concern. I'm running through it now, but I'll reiterate the areas. Number 16 is corner stores.
I'm sorry. I also have a concern which we didn't really talk about. And I don't have it in front of me, but it was 17, I believe, about entertainment or amusements in C1. I'm not clear what that really means. We didn't really talk about it, and I'm not comfortable with that.
It was with the nightlife.
Yeah, but it was in C1, so I don't know what they meant, because they said you can get like out. No, there was a number 17 too. Well, there was one at 9 and one at 17. There were 2 different nightlife things. One was nightlife and one was amusements.
Yeah, 9 is nightlife. It's 25,
Yeah, and then I think
25 storefront, 200 person capacity on businesses in C1 and C3.
Yeah.
It expounds it further, saying
amusements number 10.
Yeah, but isn't there a 17? That's
17?
something about entertainment in C1 areas.
No,
So I don't have it in
it's
front
about
of me, but
adapting spaces for industry.
Yeah.
it doesn't have anything to do with entertainment being put
Permits
into
to
C1.
allow any business type to see limited. It's a concern because it's rationalized and supplement existing PSA permits to allow any business for any business type to seek limited modification to size, enclosure, and location.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, because it's too vague. I don't know what it means.
It is. That's a concern.
I think she called it amusement.
Yeah,
No,
I
that's
mean,
10.
so much of it is so vague that, everything, all of
Amusement
the
is 10.
things that says simplify and modernize, but it's all vague. And basically, I think,
That's how to do it.
Yeah.
And we will be the losers.
Right.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, doing the list. So from the top, number 1, Number one on this slide deck, just running through it, was reactivating storefronts. I'm not sure that anybody had anything bad to say about that. That's removing the 2-year timeline for reoccupation, I guess, after a store closes or becomes completely vacant, right? Number 2 was simplifying the district types, allowing the same businesses to locate in C1 and C2 district, basically combining the restrictions between two and allowing them to cross over the line, so to
Well,
speak.
you know, that seems simple, but I don't really know what that means either, because
I
then you
think
have to
they have
read
to
the
clarify.
C1 and the
Yeah, we
C2.
would have to. Yeah, you would have
They
to.
have to clarify
Yeah.
C1 and C2 and what's allowed in them now, as opposed to what does this mean?
They have to be
Just, you know,
specific.
allowing, right, because allowing C1 and C2 into C2 might not be so bad, but allowing C2 into C1 changes C1 to C2, basically.
Yes, it does.
So, you know, it's just sort of
What is it?
taking down every kind of limitation there is.
Is,
It's
yeah.
ambiguous. It's extremely vague and ambiguous. And that's why I didn't like what she said. Oh, it's 1,000 pages. You might have trouble understanding it. I said, we're not stupid. We can read.
Right. Update use rules.
Yeah. So I'm adding 2 for district types. I'm just taking some notes here. Then we have 3 is enable more small scale production. I think that's pertaining to, what is it, business classes, small scale production. Yeah, right to know. I guess it's the small business manufacturing. Like she had examples, but those examples aren't here. She said it verbatim, but they're not actually listed here. Yeah.
That's right. When they start talking off the top of their head, that's not
Yeah.
good.
Be more similar, allowing small, no, clean manufacturing was the term. In business commercial areas up to 10,000 square feet, C4, C5, C6. Number 4 was no more unnecessary loading docks, which I think we got clarity on. That only applies to, it doesn't apply to new buildings and wouldn't restrict businesses in existing buildings from meeting that requirement. So number 5, which I have on the list already, is allowing commercial on upper floors.
That's a problem.
No,
Yeah, I have that on the list.
that's
I have-
about that.
So 2, 5 so far. Then I have 6 is modernizing use terms, which I think, yeah, we should. Number 7 is urban agriculture, explicitly permit indoor agriculture in commercial areas. Right.
I'm concerned about that one.
Okay, number 7.
Mm-hmm.
Number 7. Number 8 is life sciences. Allow regulated licensed labs to expand near hospitals and universities.
Well,
I'm
that
a
could be,
little
that
concerned
could be a
about that,
problem. Yeah.
because
that could
that's
be
a
problem,
health
too.
risk. A health risk to the rest of the community. Depends on what kind of labs they're doing and what kind of bacteria they're working with, what kind of pathogens. That can be a problem depending on how it's maintained. And yes,
Okay. Number 9 is nightlife, which is on the list. Number 9.
that's a big problem.
Number 9 is not on the
Oh.
list. Number 9 is on the list now. Okay.
Yes, the big problem.
Yeah, this is the one where she was speaking about the dancing is already allowed in bars. You know, you could play the music. The second you start dancing, it's a crime.
I thought that was eliminated before, years ago.
Yeah.
Cabaret
And then
license.
Maybe not officially. Maybe not
It was.
impromptly, but it's probably still
That's
in
why
the
I don't
zoning.
know.
It's probably still
It
in
was
the
a-
zoning restriction, like for a zoning thing. But as far as licensing and actually getting the business there, it's probably long gone. Similar.
But you
to
know
like,
what, though?
Yeah.
They're a little tone deaf because we're not talking about that. Either these places should be soundproofed, or because I don't think I should be hearing it across the street in my house. And this is what will happen. This is what happens now. There's absolutely no enforcement in this community. It's a free-for-all zone on
It's
everything.
just gonna get worse.
It's gonna get worse.
Our district. What does it say? C4 and C6 lobby requirements for queuing cannot be located within a. Yeah, we'll have to review this. Number 10 is amusements.
I think we need to look at that again, too.
Amusement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think because there's,
Yeah.
I think I can't, again, I don't have it in front of me, but it's it seems like there's no limit on where.
I'll
the
read it
equipment
out.
is.
I'll read it out. Better define and enable amusements such as arcades and virtual reality. Okay.
Okay, so what does that mean? Better, what does that
Says
mean?
outdoors, allow
Yeah.
outdoor activities.
Allow
to
the
And put-
assist
indoor
BSA
spaces
project.
up to 10,000 square
Where?
feet in C1/C2
Okay,
districts.
so that's like right in behind my house, you know.
Is in C1-C7 could apply to allow outdoor activities through a BSA special permit.
No way, no way. That's not good for
No.
any of us.
None of us.
Then it says
That
best
means
amusement parks. It's saying it again. Yeah, it says it. I guess it doubles down on the additional districts that it could go through.
said really carefully,
You can put an
okay?
M1
Is it-
district, that's the M1 to 3 district.
Yeah.
Without
Let me read. Let me
limitation.
read. Yeah, let me read that for clarity. It says allow indoors without limitations in C4-C through C7, and indoors and outdoors without limitation in C8 or M1-M3. Businesses
Yeah,
in
well,
That's
C1-
light manufacturing. No.
Yeah, and that's
No.
the whole corridor. That's our whole corridor here.
Yep. We
Right,
have light
yeah.
manufacturing.
So that means that they're gonna put our outdoor arcades, they're gonna put like water parks? I mean, what does that mean? an outdoor
But
arcade?
you know what? This community is practically decimated as far as I'm concerned right now. We've got trucks all over the place. We have a smoke shop at every block. We have all of this stuff, and it seems like we have liquor licenses galore, and it seems like it's just totally out of control. I don't see it everywhere else. I just see it in this community particularly, and now this will only be further enhance the free-for-all zone that we live in.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so put 10 on the list.
It says on the list. 11 is
Yeah.
home occupations. Allow New
Mhm.
Yorkers more flexibility to have businesses in their home. This is expanding up to 25% to 49% of the home, allowing up to 3 employees to be associated with the home-based business, maintaining existing noise and environmental rules, signage, limitations, and
Yeah, that all sounds great,
Yeah.
but it's
Until
not.
it happens.
You know, if you can have 3 employees in your house and you live next door to someone and you're bringing 3 employees into your house every day, they have to find parking or there's all kinds of problems. They're gonna put signs up on their house. What does signage mean? You know, if they have
Yeah.
a business from their house, they're gonna put a sign on their house and you're gonna live next door to that. There's so much that we don't really understand about what this is gonna cause. So I would put 11 on the list.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the thing to me, they're trying to push out residents.
Yeah.
Yeah, but people aren't gonna wanna live next to that, they'll move. I mean, it's
Yeah,
gonna just
that's
push
what's
out
gonna
the residents. That's basically what's happening.
number 12
The
is
city of
better.
New York.
You joining me? Hi.
Promote better ground floor designs. Okay.
Yeah, better promote better floor designs, it says. Yeah, create
Now?
consistent and easy way to understand a set of rules for ground floor designs. Yeah, that's why I'm,
And then
again,
who will,
hopefully the actual expanded presentation that they have can clarify, because a lot of this presentation is vague. This
for
and
a reason.
yeah, this and the other rules could probably hopefully expound on this to give me more of an understanding. I guess it's a slide deck. It's not supposed to be as informative, but I could understand there's a lot of holes here. But hopefully
Oh,
the other one,
I
there's
look like some trees.
yeah, there's a trap door too. But
It's not going
like
to be any further explanation. This is what they want people to go and vote yes on. Because the city of yes, really, it should be the city of no, because this is ridiculous. And this is how we further lose anything that we have, because we are losing every day.
You know, the expression is the city of yes is a mess. That's
Yes,
what
it
they're
is.
saying.
Yeah. I've read that too.
13.
It's yes for the commercials and no for us.
Right.
I don't know for them.
13 is to reduce the conflict with auto repair.
Well, how are they gonna do that?
They're
Still
stating
free.
with a site plan that keeps activity off sidewalks and streets, zoning defined categories, light and heavy vehicle repair and maintenance shops. Heavy repair must be registered with New York City Department of Motor Vehicles and would be allowed in C8 and M districts. Allow new light auto servicing uses in C1 to C7 district to locate only by BSA special permit.
They have not been able to regulate that now, so I don't see what's going to be different with this. Because you got tires all over the street, you have sidewalks, you have, I mean, intersections blocked. They haven't been able, they're not going, how are they going to change that?
I just wanted the definition on what light auto servicing means. Is that oil
They just
change?
want to get rid of it altogether is what they
Huh?
want to do. They just want to get rid of it, just like
that
they did in
auto-
Queens.
Is that
They
oil
did that in
change?
Queens. They did it in Queens. They got rid of all the auto places over on the side there, and I don't know what they did over there, but they took them all the way to build. And that's what they want to do. They want to get rid of all the automotive shops because they don't want us to drive cars, and all these businesses are going to close.
Other shops need a little tidying up. I mean,
They
they're
do,
ridiculous.
but that could be regulated in a different way than to not let them build. You know, they're really
They're not
putting a
gonna
lot of restrictions on it.
Mm-hmm. Actually, they're putting the restriction on us. You gotta look at it real good.
Number 14 is micro distribution. Allow for safe and sustainable neighborhood delivery hubs. I guess it's expounded on that. The idea is to have basically the example was package drop-offs, right? They wanted you to have like a UPS location where you could have drop-offs, so somebody could then. I thought I'd seen forms of this on Church Avenue before. Am I mistaken? Didn't they have like? But they didn't have someone delivering your packages. They had just UPS like drop-off points that if you missed the package, you can go to said point to pick it up. Which
They have that all
it is.
over.
Yeah,
It's
we
not
have
new.
that.
Right?
This sounds to me a little like chaotic. Like I don't even understand what it means. So the truck won't deliver to your house. They're going to deliver it to a store, and then people are going to get on bicycles and deliver the packages on bicycles. I mean, I don't even understand what this means. I don't understand it.
It sounds like it's.
They do it in Manhattan, and it's not any tidier. It's just it clouds up everything just the same.
Yeah, it's going to make things more congested.
Yeah, that's all.
15 is campus
Mr.
commercial.
Free,
Yes,
What?
may I jump in? So,
absolutely, Mr. Dawes. Yeah,
sorry, my son is following me.
I'm there. I'm with you.
So there's a drop-off shop. It's on Flatbush, like 1301 Flat. I don't know the exact address. It's near the YMCA.
Okay.
In East 26 and Farragut Road. And what they do is, as they can't deliver it, you're out there, deliver it there. But another issue is sometimes UPS may not even attempt to deliver. They'll say they attempted to deliver and they'll just drop it off there.
Okay.
So people would just go there and pick up packages. But I wanted to say something separate. It sounds like there are, and I don't want to create more work, that there are two separate lists. It sounds like there's a list where we need clarification, more clarification, and that this is going to be end up we can be specific about what kind of clarification we need and what kind of concerns we have, or what kind of clarification we need. And then there's a separate list where we know for sure we're against this. Anybody can correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct.
It's clear on the items. I mean, I'm taking notes too. Yeah.
Oh, you're taking notes.
Yeah.
Clarification. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Even
you.
the micro distribution, you would want more clarification on that because it's saying so delivery activity can locate. I need to see, we need to see examples of what does that mean? I've never seen that before. So where could we actually see where this is being executed? Like I need executables. I need something to show me why you think that this needs to be a part of this, right? Or is it a part of it somewhere else in the city, somewhere?
Yeah.
And
Manhattan.
its effectiveness. Yeah, its effectiveness is meaning what? Like I don't know. Campus, yeah. So I'll have that separated in the list, and I'll just review it once over, just to do the Venn diagram, because some things might fall in the middle between two. 15 is campus commercial.
We don't have any NYCHA housing, so I don't know that is relevant.
Yeah, not anymore, right?
We never had any.
No, I thought we had Flatbush Gardens. No,
that's not NYCHA.
That is not NYCHA housing.
It's a private.
I said not anymore.
That's private.
It never was.
It never was.
Oh, it never was? Oh, I didn't know that.
People keep saying that, but it never was.
We used to call it projects, but it was never but there was never a nitro.
It used to be the Vanderveer Estates years ago.
But we always
before
called it the
became what
project.
it is now. And I don't know why.
Because
yeah, I
they
thought
look
it had
like
projects.
projects.
I
They
thought it
look
had
like
projects.
projects.
Yeah. Okay.
No, it looks just like Stuyvesant Town or anything else.
16 is corner stores.
That is a problem to me because
Yes.
we have so many of them already. So I don't know where they would fit anymore. Sometimes there are two on a block. So not
She's
even on each
talking
corner,
about
but next
putting
to
like
each
a
other.
store in a garage. I mean, what is that
Yeah.
about? I don't understand. What is our neighborhood gonna look like if everybody's got stores
It
that
looks
are their
hard to know.
garages?
City plan authorization to allow up to 25 years of commercial space within 100 feet of an intersection. Within 100 feet of an intersection, subject to both environmental review and community board approval.
But then, I want to clarify that too, because I mean, when I asked her this and then she brought up the garage in the person's house, it's like, okay, so only if you own a corner property, you can get a business in your garage. But if I live next door to that corner house, I can't have a business in my garage. None of this makes sense to me.
Well, it
You can put
depends
an
because
apartment
they
on
have
top.
that 100 feet of an intersection. So it's like,
If you're lucky enough to have a corner home, you can have a business. It's not even really, I mean, not that I like the idea, but then it's not really fair to other people that live on that block. If they want to have a business, they can't because they're not in the right place.
It
No,
depends on what kind of business it is too, because you
Right.
could be unsafe with their business.
If it's one of those dirty little corner stores, it's gonna bring rats, more rats into a residential area.
Yeah, they're
we're even-
forcing a commercial area into a residential area by doing that.
Yeah.
And it's bringing rats into the area because most of those corner stores are not that clean. And where are you gonna store whatever you buy in there? Where are they gonna
You need so many.
Ms. Robinson, your hand is raised. Ms. Robinson?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, so they were talking about the commercial stores at the end of, so in a residential neighborhood, you could have, if you have a corner property, you could turn your garage into a store?
That's what she said.
Yeah, I'll read it out. It's basically saying that it creates a process to allow small new bodegas, they're using the term bodegas to be specific, and other locally serving storefronts in residential areas. Yeah, so the limitation is the size of the store, and the use is within 100 feet of an intersection. So a typical lot for the row houses or the houses that we have in our neighborhood is probably what, 15 feet wide, sometimes 12, right? So depending on its proximity to the corner, it might be like the first 5 blocks, the first 5 houses from, and the term intersection, like, is it major intersection? Or could it be like on a corner like Snyder and Tilden? You know what I mean? Like, or Snyder in New York. You know what I'm saying? Like, what does the word intersection mean? The original rule, I think, showed restrictions for major intersections, or what's stopping it from being on any intersection. Period.
It could be, and if you're saying you said it was 100 feet
Of
from
an
the
intersection.
So that
From
means so you can have the first 3 houses then, or
Yeah.
4 houses, and then 4 houses from one corner, they could all have businesses, and then the other 4 houses from the other corner, if they're measuring it from that corner, the opposite corner, they could have businesses, so it will make everything commercial. Basically with the possibility that everybody could have a little store in front of like on a small avenue street, like,
The
right?
ramifications for that you see on, I think, Church Avenue and like, can't remember the street right now. One street from Nostrand Avenue, one of those side streets where something like this similarly happens. Is like a fish market on the corner. The next to the fish market, there's like an empanada store. And next to that, I think there's like a barbershop. And what it does from the street is it expands the commercial parking, which means that you can't park going up the street. You can't park on the residential side of that particular block. I want to say it's 32nd, right? You can't park it's across the street from like the dollar store. You can't park going 20 feet into the block because the commercial thing goes there. So like, is that a consequence of allowing this rule? Like this is
Yeah, I think I
But,
think it will mess up the residential areas big time. I think this is one of the most serious ones on this list that's going to impact us the most.
That's the
only
plan.
if development would not create traffic congestion or environmental
Yeah,
concerns.
but who's going to say? Oh, so how? That's so arbitrary.
Who's gonna
Only
be
if.
shopping in this
Yeah, who's?
bodega? Because I'm not gonna go there.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
but you don't even know if it would be a bodega. It could be a liquor
Yeah.
store.
They're
Yeah.
saying only bodegas. They're saying only
Yeah,
bodegas.
but she also said this person could put a bookstore in their
Yeah,
garage.
locally
Sure.
serving storefronts in residential areas. Yeah.
You know, I mean, more bookstores would be great, but you know, that's probably not going to happen.
Not happening.
There's an
No.
example of this in the past 2 years on East 28th Street, on the corner of East 28th Street and Fargate Road. One of the houses, they basically converted to, I think they sell, I guess, costume jewelry and different costumes. And it's on the same block where there's a mechanic at the end of the block. And I don't know that corner on Flatbush, where East 28th goes into Flatbush. They built like 3 buildings there.
Yep.
I don't know the names of the buildings, but do you know the area I'm talking about?
Area
Right on the east, yeah, right on East 28th. And I wish I was looking to see if I had a picture. I can get a picture I can share with the group. But when it was first there, the customers started to go to the store, and then they started to double park on near Fargo Road right there. And then you already have the mechanic at the top of the road. So they've already taken up most of the parking spots on that block.
Utilizing the street for repaired vehicles.
So, but yet this thing says that as long as it doesn't cause any more congestion, we already have a parking issue, not issue, crisis in this area.
And there's no way to prove that it's not going to cause more congestion. They can say, oh, no, it's not going to cause more congestion, but how is that measured until after it already happens?
Marguerite, you hear me?
Yeah.
Metric is a good question. How do we measure it?
Right.
And if they tell us exactly how we measure it, then we can report it.
Well,
But
they're
if they don't
saying
tell us how it's
environmental
measured,
review, and that's probably a part of it. That's the catch-all with that. They're saying environmental review. So
What
No,
does that even mean? What does that really mean?
I mean, that's really the question, right? But from
There's no,
our
how could they
history,
do an environmental review? Things have to get done in like a short period of time. They're not going to do environmental reviews if a person wants to open a bookstore in a garage. It's not going to happen. This is all bullshit. Excuse my language.
Especially if they have connections.
The other thing is that there's no limit to the types of stores it could be. It's
There
not,
is no-
they're using, they're putting like a corner store or a grocery because they know that's the least objectionable use that most people would think of. But the reality is that store can sell almost anything. So I just,
Yeah,
like,
we have
that's-
no control over that.
No. And that means you can be more, honestly, you can have, and I'm fine with people using the stuff for their home, but I don't want, like, personally, I don't want like more encroacher of like weed stores or those things near to homes like that. There's enough of them already on the commercial corridors, but now that would even more easily be able to be sold closer to homes. And the reality is we see the lack of enforcement as is, and landlords are going to go whoever's going to get their rent to pay their rent. So I don't think that is a good idea at all, especially because it's very clear that you cannot use land zoning to basically limit the types of use of these of business. It's very limited in what ways it can do that. So I think next thing you know, people will start complaining because they'll have more romantic depots by there, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I don't know about that.
Can we agree that maybe number 16 is something that we say no on? Like besides clarification for all these other things, that this is a definite no, that we don't want?
Can this be divided up by number, or do you have to vote on it as a package?
Remember, there's
Our
that checklist.
recommendations, right?
There's a
We're giving
checklist that
them,
has
yeah,
the
we're giving,
16 things or whatever that you can say, you know, yes, no, or with this modification. So that's in
that
that
might be
deck.
the easiest way, identifying what the problems are now, but then having everybody probably on an individual basis is more work for me. But if you pick and say in like a message or an email to me saying that item number 2, I have these issues with it. Item number 5, I have these issues with it, and I'll be able to put it all together. That'll probably be the easiest thing for me to do. We're having it in an open forum now for identification purposes, so we can vote on, yes, we have issues with all of these, but for me to package it, I'm going to probably need to take everybody's, because everybody has different issues with different pieces of certain numbers, and I need to be able to put that together.
But what I'm saying, Mr. Frey, is that number 16 seems to be a consensus on that.
Yeah,
one.
it could be a no.
Maybe.
Yeah, it could be a no, but it'll be a no in a formalized document of all our recommendations, identifying our issues on the entire proposal. It's still going to be a no. We could say that we're not for this, or we have concerns for this. That's how it's going to be. That's how it's going to be written out.
It could be a survey where you can have a yes no option, needs clarity, and then you can have an open response field, and that way you can gather the data that you're requesting.
Yeah. So a Survey Monkey could do that, you think?
Yes.
Something like that? All right.
Use the worksheet that they provided in the deck. There's a so
In the
supposed to be a
back
link
on
to
the
that
last
worksheet.
page, right? That's the last page.
Yes.
Last page on the deck they showed. I saw that. What was that? That's page.
Allison?
That was the last page we saw, right?
I can hear.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
What I was going to say is I'm looking and listening very carefully to what they were saying, and it's to me it sounds like they're trying to convert residential into commercial for some reason. It's like a form of blockbusting.
All right. Before we get off track, let me just run through the balance of the numbers. Number 17.
Then eliminate everything else.
Number 17 is adapting spaces for industry. And number 18 is new loft style zoning districts.
I have a problem with that because I mean, usually lofts become places where they're sort of very high rent, and I don't know if it's going to be lofts for residential space or lofts for commercial space.
Yeah, saying both.
Yeah, okay, and that becomes I don't know where that would go in this district.
Probably
Given
where
the
our
current
M1s are.
zoning.
Well, it wouldn't be because it would be contextualized. It would be changing probably our M1 to an M1A according to this. That would allow then for something like where they wanted to put the storage facility to be turned into a law for residencies, something like that. That's what it would allow. It would remove the restriction for them only needing to only be able to do small manufacturing, light manufacturing there, and give them the opportunity to utilize that same storage facility, converting it into suitable residencies or a mix of commercial activity near transit, it says. So
because that was always the plan, and with the IBX coming right next to it, that's where we're going to see a lot of these various things there, which will be probably and very high rent, so to exclude the existing residents, a lot of them in the area.
Okay.
It's sort of like an ability to make more industry city spaces around the city.
That's
kind of setup.
And how does this conflict with the borough president's his plan for the borough, because they seem to be in conflict in some areas.
They get rid of him.
And his thing is a 600-page thing.
I didn't really. I know his residential goals. I didn't know his. I don't really know his commercial business goals. That wasn't really like out there. Or not out there that I was registering at the time reading his proposal. It was more the residential stuff that I was looking at, which I guess will come into play when we get is it the final leg, the housing, or is it 2 more? I think there's 1 more for housing. When we see that, I guess next year, that's what she said. That's probably going to be more in line with what he's proposing. So I have this. I think I'm going to take Dr. Dawes' idea and probably try to get a survey out. What was the 3 options you said, Mr. Dawes? You said, are you for, against, and for the survey?
You can say it couldn't be that. It sounds better than what I said. I said yes, no, needs clarity. And then you just have for each of them, you have an open response box.
Right.
And that's where if somebody wants to make explain their reasoning, they could.
Okay. Yeah. And I'll do that, and I'll try to put the number with the supposed, so you could read it, but then you'll also have the slide deck, which we'll have distributed tomorrow to cross-reference and to be able to actually fulfill the survey properly, right? That was the end of the deck. I think it ended at 18. I think it changes to another language or something like that. Let me see. Oh no, it just it actually goes deeper into describing what the proposals are. Like, I guess with the slide deck that we have in the chat that's going to be distributed, it goes into proposal 1 and it actually speaks on what it's allowing. Like what's currently there, what they're claiming the issue is, and what the proposal is expanding or removing or allowing. All right, so there is more information that we're going to need to look at that we didn't get into tonight. But yeah, the slide deck that she distributed, where it stopped tonight, after that, there's probably another 20 or so pages that speaks on each one of the numbers in detail, or as detailed as they seem. I guess they're showing where it is now and what it's changing to, with illustrations, which is good. Maybe this is what she was mentioning when she said that they have something that was more in depth. It seems like this is along the lines of what it is, but I'll see what she sends tomorrow, and I'll try to combine that with the survey. And if you guys can answer that, that'll be great. But we do have a motion on the floor, so we have to close it for discussion and then vote, I guess, on. Yeah, we close that for this. Oh, we have hands up. Ms. Erskine? Sorry.
Yeah, hi. I've been following along as best I can. I just want to make sure that I have not been able to find in the chat what you guys are referring to. So that will be emailed to us separately?
Yes.
The document, the slide deck, so that I can look at it at my leisure and make my decisions? And then along with that, you're going to be emailing a survey in which we say yes, no, or want clarification and that you just described, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I had the materials I needed.
No problem. All right. And closing the discussion portion of this, I guess we have to go for a vote.
I'm sorry, could you please restate the motion that's on the floor?
Yeah, the motion on the, well, I don't know if Ms. Vigliotti, do you remember it? The motion on the floor is to address. Yeah, go ahead.
You go ahead. Because actually you clarified what you wanted to say after I made the motion. I said the motion was to take a vote on galvanizing the discussion, but I don't really know what we're voting on, to tell you the truth.
We're voting on identifying the issues that we have concerns with the City of Yes Economic Opportunity Package. And we're gonna send those concerns to the general board for overall review, I guess at this point after the discussion. That's more or less the motion for where, as a group, we're defining what issues with the proposals we have that we are gonna bring to the general board as our recommendations for needing clarity or concerned or we're totally opposed to. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, so the vote. And let's see. Excuse me. Sorry, gotta go to the list. I'll do it on screen. So,
Can I just, I need some clarity on what it is we're voting on.
all right, as a group in discussion, we identified 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 issues with the economic opportunity City of Yes proposal that we just reviewed, right? We're going to present those issues to the community board as the recommendations of, or the areas of concern from the land use committee to the community board on the general board meeting. And hopefully at the general board meeting, we are going to then ask, we're going to go get additional opinions on it and then use both our opinions and the community board's opinions to formalize the document that's going to have our recommendations that we send to DCP. Yes?
That sounds so complicated.
It does, but it's our recommendations that we present to the board, and then we're going to have probably more recommendations. And then it's going to ultimately be something that goes as the recommendations to the DCP before the end of the month. You're voting on addressing these issues that we just had a discussion about.
So we're gonna vote on points of interest and concern by this committee.
Yes. On behalf of the Land Use Committee of Community Board 17. Fair?
Well, that's the way to phrase it.
Ms. James? She's not there. Okay. Adele Bennett?
I vote yes.
Allison Martinez?
Yes.
Okay. Ann Hudson? There, Bree? Oh, you said yes?
Yes.
All right. Bree?
God, I feel so hot.
I vote yes.
Mr. Johnson? You did?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Carroll, or no?
I'm here, yes. At the end of the day, all this stuff impacts our health.
Mr. Holland?
I vote yes.
Dr. Dawes?
Yes.
Okay. Hazel Martinez?
Yes.
Ms. Bacardi?
Yes.
Okay, then we have Joan Erskine?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Viglianti?
Yes.
Ms. Fields?
Yes.
Timothy?
Yes. Yes.
And Ms. Quashie?
Yes.
Overwhelming, and I vote yes. Mr. Lewis, is he still here? Probably not. All right. All right, so.
Did you call me?
I did. But
Yes.
James? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 yeses. 16 yeses. 17 yeses, including myself. All right. 17 yeses, so the motion is moved and properly. Again, the word because I'm tired. I'm sorry. It's good. It's good. And yeah, I'll get everything together. We'll try to get everything together in a slide deck. I have Ms. Frazier distribute that slide deck, hopefully with the information they give us tomorrow, along with the link to the survey. So we could try to get everything together as a group anyway. It's probably the easiest way to get everything together and our concerns together. So thank you. Moving the agenda along to new business. Sorry, hearing no other unfinished business, sorry. Moving the agenda along to new business. Do we have any new business? I think we kind of did the new business. So do it. Nothing new? Okay. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Joan Bacardine moves to adjourn the meeting at 10:03 p.m.
Three.
Second the motion, Marguerite.
Moved and properly seconded. Thank you, everybody. Happy New Year. And we'll be in touch. Look out for the information. It's going to come in two facets. Definitely an email. And I might just drop the survey in the chat, just in case anybody doesn't see the emails. The goal is to try to get everybody's opinions in, and you'll probably see some sort of a document that galvanizes that before the meeting, just in case you want to make any addendums or changes. All right. All right.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night,
Good
everybody.
night.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Good
Take
night.
care.
Good night, everyone. Happy New Year.
Bye.
Happy New Year.
Bye.
Wait, hello, Mr. Kwame. Kwame, do you have me down for attendance?
I do.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
No problem.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. I'll be in contact with you tomorrow, Ms. Frazier.
Yes.
Well-
Actually, I'm off tomorrow,
Okay.
but I will take some time out and get the link. Whatever information you would like me to send out, just shoot me an email.
Yeah, well, we
I
kind
will-
of need them to. We kind of need them to
Just
send us
the
first,
the
and then
whatever
we'll.
is in the go ahead.
Yeah, because they said they're gonna send us a link that has like the more expounded information. So once we get that from them, I'll just package everything and send it to you for distribution, like we usually do.
Okay. So wait on you before I distribute. Send out everything.
Yeah, we're gonna wait on DCP really. Hopefully they distribute it.
I'm going to shoot an email now and ask them to forward that information. If we could get it out to the members tomorrow, that's fine. I'll take a few minutes and just get it out. I don't like to hold. When I have something to do, it's on my mind. So let me shoot an email right now before I sign off and ask them for the more expanded info that they promised us. And once I receive that, I'll copy you on the email.
Okay.
So once it gets to us, you could put the package together for distribution and I'll send it out. Just text me tomorrow. I'll be a little busy because I'm expecting some delivery and I have to get an installation done. They just texted me this evening and told me that the delivery will be tomorrow. So I sent a text to the personnel committee to let them know I won't be in tomorrow. But I'll take a few minutes once you text me and I'll send it out. It's not a problem, please. Just text me.
All right, no problem.
Have a good
Thank you.
night.
You too.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.